It's Lisa from Been There, Got Out, and tonight's guest is Padideh Jafari. She is a Los Angeles attorney, family lawyer, divorce attorney. She does mediation. Her company is called Jafari Law and Mediation Office. There she is. I see you, Padideh. I'm going to invite you. Anyway, so again, there's another company that sounds just like hers, but it's Padideh Jafari from Jafari Law and Mediation Office. And you did it so smooth.
I know. I was worried.
Yeah, no, very good. So tonight we're going to talk about a number of things, specifically in how toxic people weaponize the legal system and more. And we're going to get into some gender issues a little bit later. But for now, Padideh and I feel like we've gotten to be friends. We've now met like 3 times at length over Zoom.
Yeah.
We have some activities planned in the future in person, even though we're on opposite coasts, which I'm very excited about. But first, just tell us a little bit about your background, Padideh.
Okay, so hi everyone. This is my first live, so go gently on me on the comments. So yeah, I've been a divorce lawyer in mediation and litigation and collaborative law for 20 years. I almost can't believe that. I have a law degree from Southwestern University School of Law and a bachelor's in communications and minor in psychology. The minor in psychology is very helpful for what I do. During law school, I was a judicial extern, and then I clerked with the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office in a special unit that deals with child rape and molestation. I also am an adjunct professor at different schools, such as NYU and a smaller law school in Ventura County. So I'm all over the place, and I'm super busy, as most of my clients know.
Yeah, and you know, the fact that I like to call attorneys like you unicorns, because a lawyer with a psychology background is very hard to find. And you know that our audience are people dealing with high conflict relationships, divorce, custody battles, and co-parenting situations. So they're always asking, do you know an attorney who understands the psychology behind narcissistic abuse and emotional abuse and domestic violence? And you do understand it. Plus, I don't know if whoever is just joining, she has a background involving prosecution of children, rape cases and sexual abuse, right? So that's another really sensitive topic that we could, because we also deal only with high conflict situations that comes up pretty frequently. And people involved in these cases tend to feel completely isolated. They're afraid to talk to anyone about it. They're terrified for their children. So I'm so glad to have found you. And thank you to John from Male Victims of Female Narcissists, who introduced us a while ago. He's a lovely person. He's going to be on here in a few weeks. But so because you have this background in psychology, we talked about how sometimes people might tend to view you as soft in the courtroom, but you think that your clients, that you're not soft in the courtroom. So talk a little bit about that, as well as what you think your clients really need from you in terms of your personality and just the relationship.
Well, I want to clear one thing up. My clients never view me as soft in the courtroom, okay? I have this very strong persona in the courtroom, which is, you know, aggressive, assertive, like a shark, okay? But to my clients, they see the empathetic side. They see the side of me that has a background in psychology, that can speak to them on a more emotional level and say, I get it. You know, this is a difficult process, and I understand that some of these decisions that are being made for you that you have no control over, and some decisions you do have control over, but they still seem out of control because you're in this divorce process, which is really one of the most difficult times in someone's life, is when they're getting divorced. So, so I just want to make sure that I clear that up. I'm never soft in the courtroom. I am aggressive. I you know, kind of am a shark, but outside of the courtroom, with my own client, I'm extremely understanding and positive and sort of nurture them through the process of divorce.
Yeah, and I know you had said at some point that you feel like your clients need a safe space to land.
Yes. Well, you know, although in Los Angeles County, where our law firm is, you know, it's 65-70% divorce rate on the first marriage. And we actually call it a starter marriage, just like a starter home that people buy. So when someone comes to me and it's their first divorce, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of explaining to do on my part. So yes, to answer your question, you know, there's a lot of work to be had. And because I'm also an adjunct professor, I am like you, I teach, I educate. A lot of times I will go to the code books and I will actually send my client what the other side is saying. And I'll say, this is the law. Okay, but let me explain it to you in layman's terms. And clients a lot of times appreciate that, because if they've had a former attorney not explain the law to them, they are thrilled that I'm educating them about the process and about the laws.
Oh, I love hearing that. I don't think you mentioned that to me in our private conversations, but that's something that we often talk about with our own clients, is when you're going in to ask for something from the judge, you have to, you know, if you're by yourself or if it's your lawyer, like what judges rely on is the foundation of law. And so it's really important to understand case law. So you're the first lawyer I've spoken to, I think, ever, who said that you explain case law to your clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All the time.
Okay, so another thing that we've talked about, or I thought, was that high conflict cases like the ones we deal with are only a tiny percentage of divorce and custody battles, but you said that it's different. You said the starter marriage is about 65-ish% divorce rate. What about a second marriage?
Actually, your viewers are not going to like this, so don't come for me in the comments. But the reality is that second marriages have a higher divorce rate in Los Angeles County. And the reason for that is because sometimes what happens with the first marriage is they don't seek therapy at the end of the marriage after the separation and divorce is finalized, and they quickly jump into another relationship or marriage. And so that's why, in my mind, you know, with the psychology background, actually it's 70% the second time around. So, and, you know, I say that with a caveat in the fact that a lot of people, I mean, listen, we get clients that want to bring their, we have clients that want to bring their significant other to court and they're not even divorced. And so what I say is your significant other is going to sit outside in the hallway, because I can't, you know, destroy my reputation when a judge sees that, who is this other person, right? So, and, you know, in California, judges make decisions, so it is a bit subjective. There's no jury trial. So we want to make a great impression on the judge. And if the judge sees that you're there with your boyfriend, in the back of their mind, they might be thinking, okay, really, you know, they cannot say it, right? But it's all about appearances. And my clients that are on this live would tell you I'm very big on, you know, a clean appearance when we go to court. So that's why I think it's higher the second time around.
Yeah, I know that's something that we also stress with the people we work with, is how important it is to present properly in court, to look a certain way, and also to understand the etiquette of the court and what the court expects you to do, and how they expect you to speak, how they expect you to look, and especially to be very deferential. So it sounds like bringing your new partner in when you're not even done with the divorce in a way is also disrespectful to the judge and the whole legal system.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so speaking of divorce, another thing we talked about was you had said you're not divorcing who you marry. What does that mean? I mean, I have ideas, but tell me what you think.
Yes. So we represent high conflict divorces, okay? And a lot of times what happens is, especially if it's your first marriage, your starter marriage, as I like to call it, you don't know like who you're divorcing. You're thinking, well, why is this person lying? Why are they manipulating? Why are they gaslighting? What are all these stall tactics that are happening? And I, as somebody that is a lawyer for 20 years and has a psychology background, will say to them, let me teach you about, abusive narcissists or even sociopaths and how they operate in the legal system. Okay. And sometimes it's the first time that a client has ever heard that. Because a lot of times they'll say, well, the person is toxic, but they don't realize that, no, this person has a mental condition and it's more than just being a bad person, or why is he trying to get, so that's my job, is to teach my clients that for the first time ever, which is a huge learning curve, that no, you are married to a narcissist or a toxic person or someone that's mentally ill with other cluster B personality disorders. And that's why everything is taking a lot longer, because it takes longer to divorce a narcissist than it does somebody without that mental illness.
It's interesting because we do so much with telling our clients who often cannot find a lawyer who understands the kinds of things you understand, especially with the psychology background, that it's their job to take strategic oversight of their case. And if their lawyer doesn't understand, that they have to help educate their lawyer. But you're doing the opposite, which I bet would be such a breath of fresh air, because you as a divorce attorney are often one of the first people that somebody comes to coming out of a difficult relationship. I know I loved my divorce attorney, and I emotionally relied on him a lot, but I didn't understand what I was dealing with. And I just think of how much people must appreciate, the therapeutic background that blends in, plus the educational information that blends in with what's happening. So the roles are reversed. They don't have to convince you that this is crazy and this is different, that you actually can explain to them why it's happening. And the other thing is that we know that, and we'll get into it a little bit later, that narcissists and other toxic personalities are very predictable. So in some ways, even though a client can be so confused, especially at the beginning if they don't know anything about narcissism, that you can say, don't worry, like, we know it's going to be really bad, but we have figured out techniques of what we can do. And like you said, there's things that we can't control, but there are things we can do to influence things, especially in terms of leverage.
Right. And I just want to mention that at the firm, I call my law firm the firm. At the firm, our caseload is 35% abuse cases and 65% less conflict divorces. So that 35% is a huge number if you think about it. And we're constantly, putting out fires, so to speak. But if we take and our clients and inform our clients, then they're not surprised when we get an emergency restraining order that my client is saying, what is this? And it's like, I told you they're going to, bleed you dry, and they're going to continually take you to court. And so they're not surprised by it. They're like, oh, okay, here's another motion that makes absolutely no sense, but you told me that this was going to happen. So absolutely, I think it is the reverse. And I think it's because of, I know it's because of my psychology background and just informing them. And I don't diagnose people as narcissistic, sociopathic, pathological liars. I just lump them in to one category of cluster B personality disorders, and I just leave it at that. So if I know that I'm dealing with a toxic person, I know that my strategy is going to be different than if somebody comes to me for mediation and, they get along, but they're just ready to separate and divorce for other reasons. So you're absolutely right. We do it. I think we do it the right way, but, I wish that more practitioners and divorce attorneys would do it our way, but it's just not, you know, it's just not how it's done because not everyone has a psychology background.
Oh yeah, most people don't. Okay, so I see a comment here, forewarned is so powerful, and I had done a post the other day that says forewarned is forearmed. And I think that it is so important to have this educational component for everybody involved in this, because the thing that scares people the most is being blindsided. But when you know what to expect, you can start to relax and feel like, oh, I'm not the only one dealing with chaos. Like, this is normal. My lawyer gets it. She knows how to take care of me. It's going to be okay. Because I know what we do, because, again, most lawyers don't do what you do, a lot of hand-holding and filling in the gaps between what lawyers don't have time to explain or aren't trained to do, the circus of family court that happens. So just that knowledge, again, can be so soothing in the midst of a hurricane.
Yes. And it's not that the client is ever relaxing,
Yeah.
okay? Because they're still, let me just correct that. They are still dealing with a narcissist in family court. And listen, it's not cheap in Los Angeles County, okay? So, you know, retainers start from 5, 10, 15, 25,000. You know, attorneys charge $350 on the lowest end and $2,000 an hour on the high end. So, you know, just to make it clear, it's not like my client is sitting back, you know, eating popcorn at night knowing, okay, you know, my attorney's handling it. No, my clients are actively participating, speaking to me. We do a lot of Zooms. We do a lot of not hand holding, but like a lot of empowerment to let the client know that this is happening. It's a long road ahead. If you have children, if you have assets, if you have multiple homes in different states, we're in it for, you know, 2, 3, 4 years. So if you don't have children with a narcissist, that's the best, but it still doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. So I just wanted to clarify that too. It's, you know, my clients are the victims. They are the innocent spouses all the time, because I actually will diagnose someone before I accept them as a client, and I will only take on clients that I can add value to their case. And so, you know, I want that to be said, because sometimes clients come in for a consultation and I just don't think it's a good fit, not because I can't handle their case, but because they have a personality disorder. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be the one that's wrong in court, pleading their case to a judge. You know what I'm saying? Saying that, you know, okay, I have the mentally ill, you know, toxic person now. So I rather just work with innocent spouses that really need a little bit more hand-holding in the beginning, but that to empower them and to make them feel, you know what, I'm going through a divorce and this absolutely sucks, but I'm going to get through it because she's behind me and she's got my back. And my clients do say that to me. So that's what's really important.
That's excellent. So our mutual friend, who I don't think realized, John, male victims of female narcissists, that we credited you before for introducing us, but he asked the question, and I already know the answer, but I'm going to let you answer it. Are divorces where one spouse or the other is cluster B, typically, are they more expensive than the average divorce?
Oh, my goodness, absolutely. So typically they're more expensive in the sense that the litigation process is going to take longer. So let me give you an example of that. In Los Angeles County, in California in general, you cannot be divorced before a 6-month waiting period. So once the petitioner files, then there is a 6-month waiting period until they can be legally divorced. So sometimes when we do mediations, we have all the paperwork done because both sides are agreeing, and then we file it with the court, and after that 6-month mark, then guess what? They're legally divorced, okay? But in a narcissistic, abusive, toxic, cluster B personality, whatever you want to call it, relationship, we're never going to settle within a 6-month period, because the other side is going to drag their feet. They're going to lie, manipulate, gaslight their attorney, gaslight the judge, gaslight everyone. And we're constantly having to prove, sometimes the existence of things that they're saying that it doesn't even exist. So, clients are like, how do I even approve this? Because this does not exist. And so we give them the tools of, documenting. I'm very big on journaling. When do you pick up the child? Are they on time? All of these things. And they only have to do it through the legal, while they're in court. But even after court, some of my clients say, we love to journal because it keeps us, sort of fresh and accountable, and it keeps the other side accountable. So all that to say that, narcissistic divorces can take upwards of a year to 5 years to settle. And again, it depends on, the amount of assets. Is a person a narcissist? Are they a sociopath? Or, what is their condition? And then how many children? So if you have no children, it's a little bit easier. If you have children, sometimes people have 4 children, that just delays and delays and delays. And one other thing I just want to mention, a lot of times narcissistic or toxic people find attorneys that are similar to them. And
Yeah.
this is an important point, because a lot of times people will say, oh, he's stalling it or she's stalling it. No, usually they work together to stall the litigation by filing frivolous motions, by not, being truthful and honest. So, things of that nature. So it's really important that, I educate my client that this is going to be a lengthy process. One time, I'll give you a great example. We had to prove the non-existence of a 401k. So what happened was it was a divorce situation post-divorce. So they had been divorced since 2013. Their divorce took 3 years, and they spent $300,000 each party, $600,000. It's a lot of money for anyone. Mm-hmm. And so, husband had the higher paying job. Mom wasn't working, so wife wasn't working. So dad paid the $600,000 over the 3-year period. And after it was all settled, there was a 401k issue. And so, 401ks are sometimes split later in a quadro. Long story, but I won't bore our mutually viewers. But so what happened was, post-divorce, it was another $40,000. We were representing dad because we had to prove that this 401k that mom was claiming, there's a 401k out there, was not there. So that just goes to show you that we had to prove the non-existence of something. And so, it was very difficult, obviously, and lots of court appearances and things of that nature. But that's an example of how with a narcissist, you have to even prove things that do not exist. So yes, that all takes time.
And when you said it can take 1 to 5 years, I'm thinking off the top of my head, one of our clients is in California in LA County, I believe, and she is in her 8th year still trying to get a divorce. It's not even post-judgment. And I don't know how many hundreds of thousands have been spent. So 1 to 5 average, and some even longer.
I almost said 1 to 3, but I didn't want to be disingenuous. The reality is that it can take up to 10 years. I dealt with a case one time. It was a celebrity divorce case, and they came to me post-divorce, and it's still it's like still ongoing and it's at the 12th year. So yes, it can go on and on into you know, definitely. There's some cases, I have one now where, you know, it's like we're still in court and the children are 18 already. And it's like, you know, the narcissist is like every stall tactic, you know, possible. It's like we're fighting about a dog now or something, you know, but just anything to keep that litigation going so that, you know, the innocent spouse is bleeding dry. You know, they're bleeding dry. So we'll get that one resolved. Don't worry. But these are the horror stories that most people don't know about. And so when I tell my clients we need to come up with a strategy, and this is why, it's because I can see the end from the beginning. And so I will pass it over to you.
Well, I was going to say, Padideh, this is exactly why we're so aligned, because what you're describing, a lot of what you just said, is what's considered legal abuse, where somebody basically weaponizes the court system. And like you said, we say at the beginning of every one of our legal abuse support groups, your ex's goal is to wear you down and to bleed you dry financially.
Right.
So another thing that we started talking about that I think is important to note is there's everyone is affected by narcissists and toxic personalities in the legal system. It's not a battle of the sexes. Can you get into a bit how both men and women, because we are not a gender specific issue, we always say abuse is a human issue, men and women ruin the family court experience and the sense of justice?
So like I said on the onset of this live, narcissists have a mental disorder. Okay, so they do not think like you and I. They do not want to resolve in mediation. Okay, they want to weaponize the legal system, and they successfully do if they don't have the right attorney. Okay, so they are quite successful in court because they gaslight, manipulate, lie, deflect. You know, sometimes I'll hear something and I'll tell my client, you know, this is what was told to me, and they go, that never even happened. You know, so all that to say that yes, the disorder permeates every aspect of their lives, from child rearing, how they, you know, are parenting their child, to their relationship with their spouse, their in-laws, the court system, you know, the nanny, the daycare. It permeates all of that. So obviously the best thing to do is stay out of court, but you can't do that when you're with a narcissist, because any document you put in front of them, they're not going to accept, they're not going to sign, they don't want to settle, they just want to be difficult from beginning to end. And so, yes, we do find that, you know, based on my 20 years of experience, that they are very difficult to control and, you know, sort of put on the right path. Like I tell my clients, we have to keep our side of the street clean, because we know the narcissist, any weakness in our case is going to, you know, amplify that. So our side of the street and our legal documents have to be, you know, based on facts and based on evidence and based on the law, not emotion. So I had when I was studying for the bar exam, I had one of the best professors who, you know, was teaching us, you know, how to study for the bar. And he would always say, don't argue on emotion. So he would say emotion. And so I always thought he meant motion, like motion work, right? Like pleading work. So I'd always think to myself, what does argue on emotion mean? Like, it's so odd. But what he was saying, and I finally got this after the first couple of weeks, is he meant emotion. Don't argue on emotion. We know that high conflict divorces are very emotional, because the narcissist will trigger every single weakness, and they do it through the marriage, and then they amplify it. It's like they put a torchlight to it at the divorce, because for a narcissist, they are losing control in the divorce. And so they are losing their supply, they are losing custody, all these things are happening. And so they will literally, this mental disorder gets amplified 1,000-fold. And then our client, who's like the innocent spouse, okay, or the survivor, I like to call them, they will be triggered. And so what I was in court this morning in Riverside County, and my client is actually on this live. I can't point her out, obviously, because there's confidentiality, but her and I did breathe. Like, she would tell me, you know, to breathe, and I would tell her, okay, don't forget to breathe, you know. And so we were able to settle it, you know, right before trial, because that's where the narcissist took us to, was right into the courtroom and right into mediation. And that's just an example. So all that to say that, yes, I say they're hard to be married to, impossible to divorce, but that does not mean that you should not divorce them. So, but we will help you through that process.
Yeah. So a couple of things you just said when you talked about things being amplified during the divorce. That is exactly what my own divorce attorney's paralegal told me. She said, when you get out of the relationship, the power dynamic explodes. She didn't say 1,000 times. She said at least 10 times worse than it is in the marriage. We got a question from our friend John again. Are covert narcissists different in the divorce process? Do you notice that? And I already know, Padideh, I have so many questions for you, and other excellent questions keep coming, so we're probably going to turn this into a part 2, but let's just keep going.
So, do the covert narcissist, what was the question?
Do they behave differently in the legal process? Are they different in the legal process than the malignant narcissist?
Okay. So the covert narcissist is going to appear initially like the crying mother, you know, that I can't believe my children are being taken away mother, like the tiger mom that only cares about their child, right? And so, but we see through that, okay? And so, yes, the covert narcissist is going to be a little bit more, you know, poor is me. We know that they always say that they're the victim, you know, dad did this and dad did that, okay? Now, I'm referencing moms because I find in my practice that covert narcissists are 75% more female than men. Okay, but that's just my practice. Do not come for me in the comments. Okay, but that's just in my practice, in my own professional practice. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you noted that, Padideh, because on social media in particular, and I think in our society, people tend to view abusers as men. And there's a lot of war, we know, with the gender issues, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I think in general, people classify abusers as men. So I'm glad that you mentioned, from what you've seen in 20 years of experience, that 75% of covert narcissists in the legal system are women. We have been told, and we have seen ourselves and among our clients, that in the legal system, legal abuse is half and half.
Yes.
With whether they're covert or overt, that you know, different areas like physical abuse tends to be more male abusers. The financial stuff, men tend to be the moneyed spouse overall, but legal abuse and emotional abuse is right down the middle.
Yes. And then the malignant can, like you said, could be either, you know, the mom or the dad, and the covert can obviously be the dad too. We have seen a covert narcissist on the other side of the table crying as well. And it's like, okay, we see you for exactly who you are. And those are crocodile tears. Let me give you a great example of what that
for 1 second. Another lawyer just said, correct, with respect to the 75% ratio in this person's firm as well. So, wow, it's not just you. And I have to say, a number of other lawyers have said the same thing to us.
I wanted to just draw your attention to the malignant narcissist. We can talk about Alex Murdaugh, Okay, he was on the stand and all he did was cry and cry and cry, and the jury came back with a verdict 3 hours later, and they literally said, there was 3 jurors that were interviewed, and they said those were crocodile tears. We did not believe him. He has been covertly, the pillar of the community, him and his father and generation back 107 years. And so now he's sitting here crying. And so I think he went from covert to like straight up malignant within that, period of time of his practice. I mean, he really was just lying, abusive, manipulative, gaslit people. I mean, I watched the whole trial. I watched everything. And my husband is actually on this live watching me, and he will testify the fact that I was like screaming in our living room going, oh my God, how do people not see this? And then sure enough, the jury got that one right, and they saw him for who he was, and they came back with there were 75 witnesses, and they came back within 3 hours. So I believe that people are noticing these toxic, narcissistic, sociopathic people because people like yourself and people like our friend, male victims of narcissistic abuse, you are shedding light on this very important topic that, quite frankly, wasn't available 20 years ago when I started my practice. People were not talking about it. They were like, my ex is abusive, but they couldn't put an actual name on it. So,
right, especially the types of abuse where there's no physical marks.
Yes. But the emotional, mental, financial, spiritual marks of a narcissist are far worse, in my opinion, than physically being hit, because when you're physically hit, at least you have proof about it and people can see it. But when you are dealing with a narcissist, there is an emotional wound to your soul that nobody sees. And the more you try to explain it, guess what happens? You look like the crazy one.
Yep.
And people say, well, he's so nice though, or she's so nice. She's the pillar of our community, and she comes to every, PTA meeting. And the reality is, no, that person has ruined my soul. They haven't just taken my money, my mental health, my, all these other avenues of my relationship with myself, with my children, with my, friends. They have wounded my soul. And how do you explain that to someone? So that's where we come in. So,
yeah.
And that's where you come in.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking a little bit about the stuff with men, women, how are courts still like the 70s, the 1970s? In terms of like custody, maybe, or bias?
Well, there used to not be, I don't want to call it a bias because I think that is a dangerous word, especially speaking about family court, because we know that people are very upset about family court these days. The reality is that in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the women were not working as much, okay? And so, yes, when they went to get divorced, they would get most of the custody, 70, 80%, maybe even 90%. That is no longer the case. We know that moms have to provide child support sometimes. They provide alimony sometimes. So the courts are current and more modern. I always tell my clients, we go in with 50-50. Unless you can tell me a reason why dad shouldn't get less than 50-50, I don't have any space to hear it. Unless you can show me there was physical abuse, emotional neglect, things of that nature, I don't want to hear it. So, but there are judges, okay, and I'm going to be very careful with this because I am going to be a judge in probably the next 5 or 10 years. There are judges that are old school in the sense that they've been sitting on the bench for most of their career, and they don't want to acknowledge that the father is willing, able, ready to take the child and care for the child 50-50 with the mom. I mean, that is just the facts. And as a practitioner, I can tell you that's the truth. But if you're coming to my firm, just know that if you have to come up with a valid, documented evidence of why dad should get less than 50-50.
Yeah, that's good to know. I mean, that's something that we are New Yorkers, you know, and we call it the harsh New York reality check that we also explain to people, is that the courts tend to go towards 50-50, and especially at the beginning of the process, like a divorce, there's no record. So you have to come in with an extremely strong case to say why someone shouldn't get that much, unless you do it in mediation. Unless you privately confer and figure it out, judges will probably go towards 50-50. Even we've seen it with clients, even in states where they say that's not the default, it's still happening.
Yes.
So
Yes,
people just have to understand that. I mean, even though in your brain you think, well, I've been the one who's done this, that, and the other thing, if you have the other side saying, I can take care of the kids as well, and you don't have some strong case of abuse, it's probably going to be in 50-50 if you go before a judge.
Right. And it's got to be, I want to emphasize this, it's got to be documented abuse. I cannot go into court and argue that emotionally you don't think the father is fit because he was an awful husband to you. Because awful husbands sometimes make great fathers, okay? It's just the case, okay? So we take every case, it's case by case basis, and we need to make sure that if you are alleging physical, emotional abuse, because remember, I worked for the district attorney in child molestation and rape. So I have a specialty in this. I want to make sure that it's documented. And if it hasn't been documented in the past, let's start to document it. Let's give him 50-50 and see, you know, where is this going, so to speak, in, you know, 60 to 90 days. But don't assume that I'm going to just side with you because you are the mother, you are the tiger mom, and, you know, all of a sudden I need to make a frivolous argument to the judge that dad doesn't get to see his children. So that's not how the firm operates.
Okay, so let me throw a question at you from what you just said that we get often is like, someone will say, if the person has physically and emotionally abused me, how can they be a good parent? I am scared because of what I know from my own case. Like, I have a restraining order against this person. Why does this person still get custody? Why don't the judges see that if they've done it to me, they're going to do it to our children?
Because those two are not mutually exclusive. That does not mean, like I said before, if someone has been a horrible husband or wife, does not mean that they are a horrible father or mother, okay? Because they have a different relationship. Now, if we're talking about physical abuse, show me the documents. Do you have police reports? You know, emotional abuse, again, you can go to therapy. Is your child in therapy? Do we need to get minors counsel involved, where the minor has their own attorney that can come and testify and tell the judge that, yes, dad is emotionally abusive or mentally abusive. But don't come to me and say, this is, you know, he's a horrible husband. I know he's a horrible husband. I know she's a horrible wife. That's why you're in my office. If she was great or if he was great, you wouldn't be here. Okay. As much as people like to talk to me, and my husband will confirm that I love to speak to even strangers, they don't want to pay me $5.50 an hour to talk to them. Okay, so there's a reason why you're here, and so I'm not going to just assume that because they were a bad husband to you or a bad wife that they're a bad parent. That needs to be proven through documentation, police reports, CPS reports, therapy, you know, all of those reports. I need to see those.
Right, you need to be able to build a case. Okay, we're getting some excellent questions. Someone is saying, what about documented substance abuse? Say someone's been driving, you know, an unsafe driver, or what about domestic abuse documented in a previous relationship?
Okay, so we have clients like this. Okay, so we have situations where someone was, you know, a drug addict or alcoholic, okay? And so the court wants to make sure that if and when the child is with that parent, mother or father, we're not going to be gender specific here, as I know most people like to label people. We're not that type of firm. What happens is during the time that the child's with them, we can ask for them to be tested. Random testing can happen where they go to a clinic and they're tested for substance abuse. We can ask for supervised visitation where a third party that's paid comes into the situation where they're watching the children with the parent. So we can do all of that. There's ways around that. But again, has to be documented and not argued on emotion. So.
Yeah. Okay. Another question. We're definitely doing part 2. Okay. Can you use videos, text, and images to prove your allegations? And I'm thinking about all of the the ways that kind of stuff can be manipulated. I know what other lawyers have told us, but let's hear what you have to say about using videos, text, images, and I should also say recordings, like audio recordings.
Okay, so it's a felony to actually record someone without telling them that you're recording them. So don't be doing these things, okay? The most important thing is getting police reports, getting CPS reports, getting a strong attorney that believes your side, that has a psychology background like we do at the firm. Yes, do not do anything illegal, okay? Because if you do and the other side finds out, you can be in trouble, okay? Video recordings, sometimes I know people will do them during exchanges. That's fine. It's not something we're going to submit to the court, okay? Definitely text messaging is fine. Obviously, there are apps where we can download all the text messages. There are 2 programs that are used, 2 apps that are used for co-parenting and high conflict divorces, Talking Parents and Our Family Wizard. We recommend Our Family Wizard only because, not that we're getting paid by them, but only because we as the attorney can log on to Our Family Wizard and see the email exchange, and so I often will do that, not for fun, okay, but I will do that, prior to filing a motion to see what are they talking about. Is my client in the right? Is my client too emotionally charged? And then if they are, we just send them to you because you teach them sort of what to say and what not to say.
Yeah. Okay, so John's asking another question about recordings, and I was going to say the same thing with not, being a 2-party state. Is that just California we're not allowed to record? Because it sounds like in other states you can record without the other person knowing. So he's asking
I would check with your state, but honestly, if you want to record someone to show you're an attorney, that's one thing, but that evidence is not going to be in court, okay? Obviously in criminal, sometimes that will happen, but that's through a subpoena from the sheriff's office or the FBI and things of that nature. But in family court, we are very careful about doing things that are illegal, okay, to begin with. So, so I can't speak to other states, but I can just speak to California law.
Okay, so there's I'm keep looking this way to look at the clock, which is behind me. So there's a bunch of other stuff, but I know that I put in the description speaking of illegal things, that some things that people might be doing that they don't even realize to harm their case. But let's first, if we have time, you think we should get into sexism a little bit?
Yeah.
Or should we just hit the illegal thing? Okay, so we know that there's certain groups on social media that have been threatening divorce attorneys that represent.
How wonderful.
Yeah. You want to talk about this a bit? And maybe, I'm not sure if you want to talk about your own experience.
Yeah, so there are some groups on social media that are threatening divorce attorneys. They are threatening to really specifically threatening divorce attorneys that represent men, like the firm, like we do. And they're saying, how dare you represent the father? Fathers are bad, bad, bad. And we are a mom group and we are good, good, good. And so they are coming for us, sending us hate mail, emailing us saying, why are you following us when we were not following them? We want to, in this, I will put in quotes, we want to put you out of business. And so what I want to say to those people, specifically these mom groups, is that what you are doing is defamation, okay? Is defamation of character. It is defamation to our business, okay? And so if you're going to threaten a lawyer, you better be on the right side of the law. Okay, because also some, groups that are just helping with narcissism and just educating people, they're also receiving it. So again, that is sexism and it's discrimination against men. And realize I'm a woman saying this, okay? So if I was a man saying this, you can say, well, that's a man and that's what. No, I'm a woman saying this. And I will tell you that sexism, discrimination, and defamation, it is actually slander and libel. Go read up on Johnny Depp and how he got Amber Heard on slander and defamation, and he won the case for over 20 million. Go read that, you mom groups, and do not come for us, because we will hit you back much harder. And so that's what I'm going to say about that. That is not appropriate to do with anyone. Everyone has, if you're a father, you have rights. If you're a mother, you have rights. And we keep the child first. The child needs to be number one, okay? And so if you really, truly care about the child, you realize that the child needs both parents. That's what you will advocate. And you'll see it on all of our Instagram and social media. We talk about children first.
Right. And again, Padideh, for those that missed it, you have a background advocating for children.
Yes.
In extreme cases. Okay, so also some of these groups are actually, this is now we're getting to the question that people were asking about in the comments when I wrote the caption announcing that we were going to be having this interview. I had said there's something that people might be doing that's illegal, which I didn't realize. I mean, I didn't do it, obviously, but let's say a certain type of people are encouraging mothers to purchase some materials to send to judges that are going to be on their case. And that's all I'm going to mention. Can you comment on sending materials to your judge privately?
Yes. Okay. So I just recently learned about this. So there are mom groups, because I'm calling them out because they're not dad groups. Okay. And if they were dad groups, I'd say dad groups. But there are some mom groups on social media that are selling pamphlets apparently for $50 or $60 that a mom who's a client can purchase, okay, and send to their judge anonymously. This is about, there are stupid ideas, and this is right up there with the top three, okay? Because what you don't realize is if the other party, opposing counsel, realizes that you've done this, this is ex parte communication with a judge that's sitting on the bench in your case, okay? And you can be arrested for this. This is a big deal. Okay, so you will be sanctioned, you can be arrested. This is not appropriate behavior, okay? Again, do not do this. You're actually mudding up the waters, and the judge, quite frankly, will not read it. So your $50 or $60 is better spent either getting therapy for yourself or getting therapy for your children, or taking them, I don't want to say Disneyland because Disneyland is so expensive these days, or right, buying, your book, Been There, Got Out, the new book that just came out, because this is not appropriate and this is illegal. and it needs to end. And I will tell you that I have personal friends that are judges.
Oh, your volume just went off, Padideh. Ah! Wait. Back up your volume. I think you got another call. You said, I have friends that are judges, and then it went silent, and I was like, keep talking.
Yeah. I have friends that are judges, and they're absolutely brilliant. So the fact that you're sending them a pamphlet that you purchased for $50 or $60, they're not reading it, trust me. And if they find out who that is, you're going to be sanctioned. And by sanctioned, I mean hundreds of thousands of dollars and maybe even thrown into jail. So that is an ex parte communication with a sitting judge in your case. That is not legal. Do not do this, please. If you get nothing else from this Instagram live, it is do not start harassing the judge that's sitting and listening for 40 cases a day about how you are informing the judge on something. This is not appropriate behavior. Please do not do this.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for commenting on that. We've heard lawyers privately saying exactly the same thing. We have talked to judges who have said the same exact thing, but you took it to the next level with explaining why it is illegal, which I didn't realize, and I think it's really important to share that information, especially because there is a lot of stuff on social media and people are desperate, and I think it's taking advantage of a really vulnerable audience. So thank you so much for pointing that out. We're at just about an hour, and I only finished the first page of my 2 pages of questions for you, but we've gotten so many excellent questions that have come in, and this has been such a great conversation that I hope you'll agree to come back with me and finish the conversation, do part 2.
Yes, absolutely. I just want to say that, we also do mediation and collaborative law. One thing I do want to mention too, just to help our viewers, if you are a mom or a dad and you are in a difficult custody situation, please give us a call and we will help you even if you're in a different state. I do a lot of just one-on-one consultations, and I actually will help you find an attorney in your county. So I will vet them and I will help you through the process and get a strategy together so that when you do go to court, you know exactly what the strategy is. Also, I believe that you and I are definitely going to do this again, whether your viewers like it or not. But I just want to mention that, we have offices in Los Angeles County and Newport Beach, and that we serve Ventura, Los Angeles, Orange County, and now this morning I was in Riverside, so we'll put that on the list as well. And, we're very focused, obviously, on the child. We're very focused on dad's rights. We are also equally focused on mom's rights. We do not subscribe to a certain gender. We believe that, there is justice to be served in family court. Sometimes that justice is staying out of court and mediating and settling. But if you have to be you're getting out of a divorce, out of a marriage, and you're in a divorce situation with a toxic parent, you need to have a strong attorney that can educate you about the legal process so that you don't get bitter and angry and start communicating with the judge and sending pamphlets that will never be read. Do not do that. I emphasize that. I'm going to emphasize it again.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to put all your contact information, they can find you on Instagram.
Yes, Instagram,
easily.
TikTok, YouTube now. I don't even know, we have so many different, we just hired a great social marketing manager. And so absolutely, just reach out. There is hope. I promise you there is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel and we will help you get there. But, it's difficult what we do, but it's also very rewarding because we have some of the most happiest clients. Even in divorce court, our clients are laughing and giggling and happy. So I know that sounds like impossible, but it does happen.
No, no, we have lots of laughs too in our support group sometimes, and also with our clients who are moving through the process and realizing how much progress they're making. The other thing, Padideh, is we should note, hopefully, that we are planning to do a live event together. Chris and I are going to fly out to California, and we'll have more details on that soon, but it'll probably be sometime this summer because we have more clients in LA than any other place in the world.
That's, yes. So yes, I can't wait to do your book signing, have you, host you while you come to Los Angeles, my home turf. We'll get some clients, we'll get some of your, followers and lawyers, maybe even a judge will show up, I don't know. And so we want to network with other professionals and at the end of the day, keep the child first and walk you through a very difficult time in your life, which is the divorce process. So thank you for this. I really appreciate you, Lisa, and I look forward to our second session, which I see the comments, people are like, please come back. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. Okay, thanks so much for your time, Padideh, and we'll talk soon.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.